Hello, I'm going to make a short introductory a couple of paragraphs about my own opinions, and then I'm going to read you an article I found on the internet which you may not have come across, and it's a very disturbing one. But before we start, I want to point out that I have on several occasions in previous videos spoken about academic cowardice. And we tend to think that it happens only in our countries, but it seems to be all over the world. I can certainly speak for the Western world. In the professors, once they have tenure in universities, and there are good reasons for giving a professor tenure, but once they've got it, they sink into the comfort of having a job for life, well paid or not. It's a job, it's secure, it has a certain social status. You sit there and, with your books, students look at you, as if you actually know something and turn their faces towards you like in lecture theatres, like sunflowers turning towards the sun, and you don't want to give all that up. So in the 1930s, German professors, for instance, colluded with the Nazi Party in their persecution of Jews. The Nazi Party wanted Jews out of German universities, and what happened was the academic institutions created a separate category of professor just for Jews, which allowed them to reach a certain level but no higher. And then, of course, I believe that category of professor is still in force in some German universities. It certainly was when we were living there. So that's one example, but it happens all over the place. And you see the cowardice of professors now, like, what was the name of that university? Evergreen? The one where Weinstein was thrown out of, where the dean of the university was just collaborating with these savages who had taken over the academic institution. So it's happening all over the place, and it's also happening in schools. And this article is one in Free Thinker. I don't know anything about it. I just found the article, and that speaks for itself. It's written by a man who has felt himself forced to use a pseudonym because he didn't dare speak out publicly. Nath Janan. And it's called Silence of the Teachers. And the subheader says here, one teacher's account of what happened when some students started wearing religious clothing in violation of his school's uniform policy and what the other teachers didn't do about it. So apparently there was a departmental meeting, and he raised the issue of this girl who was turning up in a niqab with her face covered. And one teacher said, male or female, I'm assuming it was a female, that she was offended by his complaint about this. It was October, and for a month, a new 16-year-old Year 12 student of Bengali heritage had been coming to our East London school wearing niqab, an Islamic face covering. She was a new student. Nobody had ever seen her face. She just arrived wearing it. Nobody said anything. We prided ourselves at this school, a recently established free school in East London, on our reflective, progressive ethos. Yet, as far as this student's approach was concerned, any sense of reflection or progress was hard to find. I raised my concerns. On a practical safeguarding level alone, it was a worry. How could the school know the student was who they claimed to be? Sixth formers have branded uniforms and carry photo ID cards for a reason. Then, of course, there's the ethical quagmire around the whole covering of women issue. Just get over it. It's their culture, I was told by a colleague. Whose culture exactly? Niqabs are a Gulf tradition and about as Bengali as the didgeridoo. And we don't have a problem policing culture when it comes to the fashion choices of other minorities, is what I would have responded had the conversation been allowed. So the conversation wasn't even permitted. Meanwhile, other students were starting to follow suit. A handful of girls, all of Bengali heritage, were now coming to school in niqab. For some reason, it seemed to be fine for them to do so intermittently. Some days a student in my Year 12 English literature class would wear a niqab, and other days she wouldn't. On the days when she did, her height and voice were the only ways I could identify her. She was quiet and of average size, so I couldn't be certain who she was on the days that she did come in covered. My go-to approach was by process of elimination via the class register, which didn't seem satisfactory or safe. Then the Muslim boys, in disobedience of the school dress code, started to come to the school in thobe, long gowns traditionally worn by Muslim men. The school's management team buried their heads deeper in the sand. Apparently Muslim students could bend the rules, while others would get detentions for wearing trainers or donning sculpted haircuts. Just to break in on that, do you see the attitude of the other kids as against the Muslim kids, the ones who were making an exhibition of themselves? It was like they were, the non-Muslim kids were being given the message that they had rules which did not apply to the Muslims, who were a law literally unto themselves. This is going to colour their view of how society is structured for the rest of their lives. Can you imagine anything more dangerous or more corrosive? Okay, I'll carry on. Anytime I brought up this Islamic exceptionalism, papers were shuffled, eyes were averted and excuses made. Being of part Bengali heritage myself gave me a certain latitude to be franker than others, but the mostly white middle-class staff room, normally a cacophony of decolonising the curriculum, white privilege and women's rights, was silent on this issue, even though it blatantly involved privileging one group of students over the rest, and we all know why. For the same reason I, the writer here, have to write this article under a pseudonym. The same reason a Yorkshire teacher and his family are still in hiding after showing the wrong cartoons to his class. It is Islamophobia in the literal sense. Teachers and schools are scared of Islam, battling grammar, protests at the gates, online furore, death threats, Samuel Paty, being labelled by colleagues as intolerant, racist, offensive. Schools are terrified of doing the wrong thing, so we do nothing. And the worst symptom of this fear, silence. In order to counter the unresponsiveness of my colleagues, I contacted my head and other senior management via email to outline my concerns. There was no reply. Eventually, when I encountered my head in the staff room, he nervously agreed that the school needed to have a conversation about these issues. That was 4 years ago. Since then, the cultural standoff has only become more entrenched. The Muslim students effectively wear what they want, leave lessons to pray when they want, separate themselves according to gender when they want. They excuse themselves on cultural grounds from assemblies celebrating controversial topics such as Pride Month. Classrooms are commandeered in break times as safe spaces and prayer rooms segregated by gender, ethnicity and religion. The staff pat themselves on the back for their tolerance while simultaneously wringing their hands when the same students express intolerance on issues such as women's rights, homosexuality, censorship and evolution, which they often dismiss as being inappropriate Western colonial content. But nobody wants to have a conversation about it, or even to ask what kind of message we as a school send when one group of students is allowed to create its own dress code, curate its own curriculum, crowbar its ideas on gender and sexuality into the classrooms, while there might be some merit to certain cultural accommodations, the fear and silence that surrounds the whole situation are the most worrying aspect of all. Worrying? Yeah, this is me talking now. I'd say terrifying. Teachers today cannot even talk about the repercussions of allowing one particular group to break the rules applicable to everyone else for fear of causing offence. What hope do future generations have? And the answer to that, of course, this is me again, the answer to that is no hope at all, unless some teachers get some backbone. The problem is the teachers' unions are very powerful and they don't want to rock the boat. So, for instance, the Batley case, the teachers' unions were not backing up the teacher. And how can he stand up against the whole world, including his own union? And the governments are afraid of going head to head with the unions because when the unions go on strike, the country grinds to a halt. It's a big problem. It happens in America too, over different issues, of course. I think in America it's to do with public schools and what do they call it, free schools or licensed schools and charter schools, I don't know, you know, where you get a voucher and you can go to whatever school you want. That's the teachers' unions are very much against that sort of thing. So it's a different issue, but they're still calling the shots. And definitely somebody has to have a conversation, not only about this, but about the teachers' unions and about academic cowardice altogether. All right, I'm Grannyopteryx. I'm to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Please like this video, share it, subscribe, check your subscription if you're on YouTube. It drops sometimes. Contribute to the channel if you can. Buy me a coffee. All the various channels for contributing are in the description below. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, contribute. Yeah, that's it. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.